Welcome back to the Comics Experiment, the show right here at the Comic Story Podcast Network, where I sit down with two of my idiot friends and we have arguments about the world of comic books. Best stories versus stories, why comics are failing, why they're doing amazing, and why Demon Slayer is currently the best Netflix show that I'm watching.
It is actually very good. I'll give you that one.
But he specifies that I'm watching. That just means like, oh, this is the best show that's currently on my TV.
He's like, okay, I got to make sure I don't insult anyone.
Exactly.
The best one that I'm watching at this present time, that I'm not watching other shows, there's nothing to compete with it for us to be arguing about.
That was the point of that. Otherwise, I'm going to get lambasted in Twitter, in the words of Twitters. But they're just going to tell me I'm wrong
Is
and
it
an
on
idiot.
Netflix? I thought it was on something else.
It's on like a bunch of things. But
Oh,
Netflix.
okay,
I'm
all
watching it on Netflix.
I watched it
Sorry.
on Netflix too, actually.
Anyway, this show is aired live every Thursday over at twitch.tv/comicstorian. You can also catch it re-uploaded to the Comic Storian channel every Saturday or on your favorite podcast network. And I apologize right now if you've been looking for it on your favorite podcast network. Dan and I are working through those issues right now. Dan, did you fix them? Or did you forget we were working through those issues?
I got it.
I don't know. He was distracting me on the side of camera. I didn't hear what you were saying.
The re-uploads on Spotify and stuff. Have you fixed it or have you forgotten we were trying to fix it?
I've had a lot of things on my plate. But I do have some good ideas for the TikToks. So you can guess where my thought processes have been going.
It's just Dan flossing in cosplay outfits.
Today's episode of the Comics Experiment is brought to you by one of our many, many sponsors. Who is it today, Dan?
It is Mint Mobile, where you can go to mintmobile.com/experiment. And when you buy a 3-month plan, you get 3 months for free. We use Mint Mobile, so you should too. We'll tell you more about it in the middle of today's episode. We're also brought to you by G Fuel. Use code COMICS at checkout. Save 10 to 30% on your order. Depends on what current deal is going on when you're watching this and hearing this. We're also brought to you by our Patreons at patreon.com/comicstorian, our Twitch subscribers at twitch.tv/comicstorian, where we do record this live every Thursday. And we also do have multiple other YouTube channels that we are brought to you by. Dungeons and Ale being the biggest one right now. You should go check it out. We do some awesome Dungeons and Dragons stuff over there, and we drink.
The actual bigger one is absolutely Marvel and DC.
Yeah, Dan.
I kind of wanted to
an
go on
idiot.
the
You-
Dungeons
You want
and Ale
Dungeons
this
and Ale
time.
to do better? So he's like, if I got to pick one, I'm promoting the Dungeons and Dragons channel that we have launched, where we are currently
Dungeons
airing,
and- there's
starting
literally
tomorrow,
no dragons.
our Spider-Verse. We're gonna
Yes.
The fantasy campaign will be nothing but dragons.
Okay.
You're all going to be scalies.
Oh my god.
Dragonborns.
Yeah,
No,
We are
Dragonborns,
all
yeah.
dragons in the world of man, and we have to just kill people everywhere.
That
like
wasn't the idea, but that is now.
I like it. It's solid. We should just do a
You were all level
we
20s.
should just do a DC Game of Thrones and call it Dark Knights of Steel.
You're a genius, Andy.
Right?
It's a great idea, Tom. I mean, Andy.
Anyway, he's right. We launched 2 side channels, the 2 that officially have made it through the year. Absolutely Marvel and DC is me, Dan, Sal, and Dylan sitting around chatting about your favorite shows and movies. And Dungeons and Ale is me and these two in Houston doing more D&D stuff. But let's get into today's topic. The day that this is going to air elsewhere, Spider-Man is a thing.
Oh, by the way, that's why I kind of missed that bit, because today's topic is Spider-Man, and we're doing a spider campaign on Dungeons and Ale. That was the
linkage.
connection.
I see. Okay.
Also,
I
Just kind of
I
forgot
mean-
to mention it.
no one knew who he was until this
I was
movie
going to say,
ended.
Spider-Man is still a thing, you know? Like,
No, he wasn't.
today when we're filming it, not just when you're watching it, he is actually already a thing.
No.
All right.
As of tomorrow, when the movie drops, people will know who Spider-Man is. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I'm really getting tired of my niche superhero. No one knows
That
he
is
exists.
true. And no one ever talks about Spider-Man. That is a good point, yeah. I've been really into this new character. He's a Batman. He dresses like a bat.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
Is he a detective? Because
No,
that
that
really
would be
works.
dumb.
He just punches everything.
Since when do bats do detective work? Come on.
Bats can't reason, Ben. Idiot.
You moron.
Look, Spider-Man is as worldwide famous as maybe Iron Fist. Like, just nobody liked him.
He just walks around calling Peter Parker.
I got a
The
cheat.
immortal Spider-Man.
The immortal Spider Fist.
I think that's a
Why
thing.
is that another thing? Is that another thing?
I think
That's
that might
got to
be
be
a what
one
if.
of the
I-
multiversal
Spider-Man gets the Iron
Spider-Mans.
Fist.
Yeah,
so
it's
that-
got
yeah.
to be a thing.
Can I change my character to a spider that has
Can I kill you
8
today?
iron fists?
And then you can be an 8-armed Iron Fist Spider-Man.
That would be awesome,
I
dude.
love it.
Okay? And if I'm allowed to kill you today, Andy knows he's safe because I'm just going to chase you around
I
the
mean,
board.
if you kill me, I already got a side
Yeah, he
character,
wants
so
to die.
I actually kind of do. Keep going. What are we talking
Anyway,
about,
so
Spider-Man?
today's topic is going to be the best Spider-Man storylines, where the best stuff is, and the worst ones. I wanted to talk about our opinions, and then I've got a list here from Screen Rant, our favorite one.
I don't know who wrote that list, but he's an idiot.
By the way, I'm interning at Screen Rant. I wrote an article.
That would be hilarious.
So let's start here.
right.
Andy, I know he's a niche character, and I know you've barely read
Yeah, I never
Spider-Man.
read any Spider-Man.
But what's your favorite and worst storylines you can think of?
Well, the worst is definitely the Clone Saga.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to agree with that. Like,
where the
as someone who was
time-
trying to collect it at 13 years
Yeah.
old,
Because I'm not a huge Spider-Man guy. He is very niche. I always liked 2099. That was always a good one for me back in the day. But I would say probably my favorite would actually be the Spider-Man life story at this point, just because I like when they allow characters to grow and age and actually have stuff affect them.
I liked the ending to that one in
Yeah,
space
I thought
with
it was
Venom and all.
really good. I thought
Yeah.
it was a nice way to look at like the history of Spider-Man to make it all one thing and actually allow him to grow. So if I had to pick right now, I would say life story is probably my favorite.
And you've already said Clone Saga is the worst.
It probably isn't actually the worst, but
I mean,
It's
there's a lot of
pretty
competition in the
bad.
lore of Spider-Man. You know what? We all know I'm a huge Dis fan, I guess, or I hate Clone Saga because it made me stop reading Spider-Man
Dis
until the mid
fan.
2000s.
I like
But I
that.
have another story that is possibly the worst because
Okay.
it also never knew when to end. But
I really like the Death Spider-Man and Ultimate Spider-Man, and that last image where he's walking away with like the spirit of Uncle Ben who
Yeah.
tells me he did good. I thought that was a really nice moment.
So, Dan, what do you think is your favorite and worst as a new comic book fan who's only started reading comics 8 years ago?
Favorite Spider-Verse. That was my first like big event with Spider-Man, so I think I was lucky that I didn't have
Anything to really
anything
base
to
it, yeah.
compare or anything like that, and just the magnitude of that event was incredible. Like you saw so many different things, like everything actually mattered, and overall it was a really good story. Worst, most things with clones.
That's the main problem with the Clone Saga. It's still ongoing.
Yeah.
No,
They're
it's called
still
conspiracy.
bringing in clones.
Yeah, there's
I like
It's
that
been
Miles got his own.
73 years.
Miles has clones now.
That's what I'm saying.
He's
like,
teaming up with
they
his clone.
Can't
His
just
team.
let the clones go. I mean, and we have Ben Reilly is currently Spider-Man.
yeah.
By the way, he's still a clone. They didn't
Yes.
adjust that.
I love that he doesn't ever mention it though. He's just like, just think of me like an estranged brother.
So for me, the big story. So I actually fell out of love with Spider-Man. You know, we were in love. We had a great relationship, but I fell out of love with him due to Clone Saga because as a 13-year-old kid trying to collect it and enjoying Ben Reilly, Kane, and Spider-Man, and it never ending, I just lost interest. It was like, this is great. Why won't it stop?
It won't stop.
Stop, he's already dead.
It's like having your favorite ice cream, but you can't eat anything but your favorite ice cream.
I actually looked into us doing the Clone Saga on the Comic Story channel just to see how long it is.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you because you're the only one that read it. Cause I'll let you do a guess.
Most of it, not all of it.
But you know of it.
Yeah,
Is what I
yeah,
want to
yeah,
say.
yeah.
Okay, how big do you think it actually is? We all joke about
like
it.
issue count?
Yeah.
23.
No.
46.
No.
Is he on the low side or like?
He's not even close.
All right,
It
103.
was like a couple of years.
That's closer.
I was gonna say it was like a long. It was like a few years.
It was 3 to 3.5 years long.
was a decade.
And right now there is a collection
Yeah.
of omnibuses.
Yes, I do know that where they do that. It's like this is the Clone Saga Part 1.
this is the Clone
Each
Saga
of those
Omnibuy.
omnibuses is 420 to 480 pages big. So at a minimum, the Clone Saga is 1,600 pages by Marvel's definition.
That's bad.
When you can't fit it into a single omnibus,
Too much.
maybe you should stop.
It has 5 omnibuses.
That's too much.
Because I saw the first one, I'm like, oh, this could be a fun thing, like a good flash in the back. You know, Andy, I just need you to cover this one book for the Clone
Oh
Saga.
yeah, not a problem.
And then I saw part 1, and I'm like, well, they can't be that long. It must be like 200 pages a pop. It will do like Ultimate Spider-Man style. 400 to 28 was the first one.
All right, let me explain how it happened. Spider-Man originally debuted back in Amazing Fantasy. Then they started the Clone Saga. It still hasn't ended.
The year's 2025. The Clone Saga just hit its second to last issue.
The best part about the Clone Saga is people don't realize that the 90s is the big notorious one that went
Yeah,
on
yeah.
forever. But it actually started in the 70s.
Oh, I know. Yeah, when they first brought up Jackal and things like that. Yeah,
The Clone Saga was cloned, so now we've got the Clone Sagas.
yeah.
So anyway,
Pretty much.
I'm not going to take that one, though, because I got a better one that could be ranked up as one of the worst ones.
Okay.
I think it was written by Straczynski, and it's the Totem Saga, where they tried to make Spider-Man mystical. So there was the spider totems, where that came from, that was used in Spider-Verse.
That was the okay, yeah.
It was
Oh,
another
the
story
start
that
of it.
just
Okay.
wouldn't end. It
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
now
yeah.
we have another totem, and now you have these magical
Yeah,
powers.
yeah. Well,
and-
isn't that when like Silk and all them started showing up?
no, it was way before that.
Oh,
Silk and all
okay.
that showed up for Spider-Verse, which is
Okay.
when they revisited it, just like Clone Saga. They were
kind
like,
of made it slightly better.
yeah, they kind
yeah.
of fixed the totem situation by basically stating Peter Parker is not the spider totem, it's Kane, and then they killed Kane. But
The idea of it, of it being mystical is kind of weird.
yeah.
They're like,
I don't
you
know
were
the
bitten
full.
by a radioactive spider that people messed with. Yes, but that was due to multiversal destiny, in which you are a totem. Also, there are vampires.
I don't know the truth behind
there's
this. I don't know the truth behind this. So I'm prefacing this, what I've heard, as I've only heard it through the grapevine. Supposedly, that was a part of the changes that Marvel was making to line it up with the Tobey Maguire movies so that they could change things to like organic webbing and do what they
right,
wanted to
yeah.
do with it.
Okay.
And and the answer in comics was to go a mystical route so you
Right,
could just
yeah,
do
yeah.
things.
It was just kind of weird.
Whether or not it's true or not, I don't know. It's just I've heard through talking to other Spider fans.
Because as much as I like the Into the Spider-Verse story, or the Spider-Verse, Spider-Geddon, not the third one though.
Dude, that one was bad.
It's
Spider
just kinda,
Zero's
it's
in
just,
that, by the way. That's where I got that character from.
Oh, it's just kind of weird. It's kind of weird to go from, like I said, you've been bitten by a radioactive spider or genetically engineered spider or whatever the hell it is now. But that's a destiny thing, and also there are vampires. It's just kind of an odd way to go about it.
Also,
I mean, that's
there's
kind of how it is. They're like,
My
by the way, there's
favorite,
also
though.
vampires.
only spider-eating vampires, though. They're not normal.
They specify they don't only eat spiders.
They just like the spiders.
the spiders
more.
give them the most
That's right,
energy. Yeah.
that's right.
So the Clone Saga kicked me out of Spider-Man. And then I just didn't want to read it anymore because everything I remembered from reading it as a kid was Spider-Man just cries all the time. That Mary
That is
Jane won't
true.
be with him.
That
and
is a
he's
good
just-
point, yeah.
It's just mopey. So
He got
And walking
better.
away from his
Yeah.
costume in the trash can.
It's a
How
bold
many
news-
costumes did he just give away? Because those
true.
must have been expensive.
So for me, I stopped reading Spider-Man in its entirety at that point and kind of fell off Marvel early 2000s and went more just DC, Batman, Green Lantern, that kind of a thing. And I didn't get back into Spider-Man actually until the Amazing Spider-Man movie came out. The original one, not the crappy second one, the first one with Andrew Garfield.
Right, Andrew Garfield.
That kind of, I was like, well, maybe I'll give it another shot. So I jumped in on Dan Slott's run with Big Time and all that stuff and started reading it then. So for me, the big story that really hooked me in and like I liked what Dan Slott was doing was actually Spider Island. Spider
Where
Island.
everybody gets Spider-Man powers.
Yeah, everybody.
They all become totems. Also, there's vampires.
Everyone gets Spider-Man powers, and it's cool. And I remember to this day, I loved the way Dan Slott did it because he had a preference for like the girls need to be hot and awesome.
yeah.
That's where Silk came from. Because I mean,
What's that? It's a webbing costume. Yeah.
I just-
Also, pheromones make them want to bang.
look, I like Dan Slott's writing. He's a super friendly guy, but he looks like your standard guy that would write that story. But I remember it standing out.
Also, they're vampires.
Also, there's vampires. It just stood out to me because everyone in this story, from Captain America to Wolverine, is all turning into giant monster spiders to
Except
fight
the women.
Except Mary Jane.
Yep.
Mary Jane is just webbing around in a flowing dress. Just
As you do.
and it has some of the greatest art ever, too.
Also, there's vampires.
Also, there's vampires. I think there was a vampire in that story. Because I think they had Werewolf by Night show up and a vampire.
Yeah, I think so. I do remember Agent Venom shows up to like mess up the Spider Queen.
That was one of the first times that Agent, because at that time in Agent Venom's lifespan, he was still incognito.
Yeah,
and
people
no-
didn't actually know he was a thing.
Okay,
Yeah,
so he
yeah.
kept just showing up and just fixing situations and leaving. Like the first one, I think was Carnage USA for him, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. Where
he just shows up
with a
and-
grenade
Yeah.
launcher.
I remember that one.
And it's like, Avengers assemble after blowing everything up.
He was the
I mean,
coolest
it's
guy
a cool
ever.
entrance.
Because he was just this incognito Avenger. The only one that knew he existed was Captain America.
Yep.
That was it.
Because he was on
Yep.
the Secret Avengers for a little while. Yeah,
But yeah, that's my probably favorite story. Not for any particular reason, because the overall story isn't the greatest. It's just
It's some cool moments.
it had cool moments, but it really was just people turning into big spiders and
Everybody
fighting.
becomes like a big spider on Manhattan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the story that really cemented me like, okay, Spider-Man can do some cool stuff again. Let me try getting actually into Spider-Man, not just reading them here and there. So
Sure.
that's why that one was for me. For me, a lot of times my favorite stories don't relate to what I consider to be a great story or an amazing story. It's
Or a
something
spectacular story.
for me, it's typically something that's related to something that happened to me in the real world. Like I link it to, like,
Sure, yeah,
oh, I
yeah.
was reading this when I got married, so this is like I love this story.
That means I hate this book. A lot of bad decisions that year. A lot of bad decisions. Sorry.
And I read Spider
watch the
Island
show,
actually while overseas in Afghanistan. So,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of like, oh man, I really enjoy this, and I got to get away from everything and kind of read it through it. So, I enjoyed that. But that's my favorites. So we can all agree, Clone
Spider
Saga and the
Island.
Totems are like the worst in his history.
Well,
I mean, the totems
I don't
were
remember
fine
this
for me.
original. I was gonna say I don't remember the original, and the idea, like I said, not the idea. It's terrible. It's just weird to me. But I don't remember this original totem idea story, so I couldn't comment on that. So.
Okay, well, how about One More Day?
I read that once. I don't really remember it.
It's the one
I know it's when like he made the deal with Mephisto and basically reset time again.
they threw out the wedding because that was the,
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
stand by my statement on this. I will say Tom Taylor's doing amazing work making it work, but it's just the reason why they don't want to do marriages in comic books is it just kind of you shoehorn into a story like you have to have this as a part of it. It's just easier to be more open ended. It does add challenges, and a lot of writers don't want that challenge.
You know,
they just want.
I was gonna say you can tell an interesting story. I just think like a lot of writers don't.
Right, Tom Taylor is doing a great job, and so was
Tom Taylor. Who are you talking about?
Yeah,
with Tom
why
Taylor?
do you keep bringing up Tom
He's
Taylor?
not writing Spider-Man.
No, I'm talking Superman and Lois. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, okay. Well,
There was a big jump that was
jump
not
there.
mentioned. Also, there's vampires.
Kryptonians are actually totems, and also there's vampires.
Because I was gonna say he did a great job of doing a marriage and making
Yes,
it feel organic,
yes.
and so did who was writing Superman before Bendis took over and ruined everything.
I don't remember.
Tomasi.
Oh,
Tomasi
okay,
did a great
yeah,
job
yeah,
of that
yeah.
too. Yeah.
I was like, you can't tell interesting stories. It's just, it's more challenging than writing the same old. Well, Peter's got problems because he left their date to go be a Spider-Man. Also, they're vampires.
Is this your new thing? Should we get that
I
shirt?
think it might be.
Also, there are vampires.
I really want the Spider-Man movie to end with like an after-credit scene with vampires. Also,
They're vampires.
and it's Morbius. Hey, what's up?
Yeah, it's Morbius.
He starts doing his Joker laugh.
But before we go through this portal to Screen Rant, Dan, do it.
You had the perfect opportunity.
Andy, ready? 3, 2, 1, portal.
I have tiny portals.
Today's episode is sponsored by Mint Mobile. This holiday season, the best deal in wireless can only be found at Mint Mobile. Right now, when you switch to Mint Mobile, buy any 3-month plan and you'll get 3 months for free. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton, with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. I've been using Mint Mobile long before this holiday deal, and I have to say, it's the perfect time to switch. With all plans coming with unlimited talk and text, as well as high-speed data delivered on one of the nation's largest 5G networks, what's not to love? For a limited time, buy any 3-month Mint Mobile plan and get 3 more months free by going to mintmobile.com/experiment. That's mintmobile.com/experiment. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/experiment.
Hey, we're back from
Portals
the
open for more than 4 hours. I go see a doctor.
Luckily, you can call them with your Mint Mobile plan. Continue.
So now we're going to go to Screen Rant. Andy, what are you going to preface this with?
I don't know who wrote this list, but that person is an idiot.
So I got a Screen Rant list of the 15 best Spider-Man comic book arcs of all
I
time.
bet one of them is that time he lifts up the thing.
That one, I'm going to say Kraven's Last Hunt is on this list.
Okay, is that the one? I can never remember where that is from.
I don't remember where that one's from, actually. You're right.
Lifting what thing?
I think it's Kraven's Last Hunt. I think it's because Kraven kills him in Kraven's Last Hunt.
There's a moment. It's supposed to be. It's generally in a list of like greatest Spider-Man moments ever, and it's like he's trying. I think he's trying to save a little girl from a collapsing building. That's
Okay.
that's like flooding or something like that.
It is not Craven's Last Hunt.
and he
I know
can't
that.
lift it. and then he kind of like perseveres and he pushes himself and he finally does.
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
And it's one
They
of those-
redid it in Homecoming, actually.
If I
Yeah.
remember
yeah.
correctly, that happened way before Kraven's Last Hunt, because
I don't
Kraven's
remember.
Last Hunt happened like maybe a year or two ago.
No.
Are we talking about the one where like?
No, he's talking about a different one.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Kraven
I want to come.
kills Spider-Man and then buried him alive. Actually,
And he just gets up.
And then they.
And
What
claws
was
his
the
way
most
out.
recent one where he like clones himself and like one of the kids?
This is
I thought
before
that
Kraven
was-
like that whole
Okay.
thing happened. This is
I think Kraven's Last Hunt, he dies
he
or
kills himself at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what leads to the son and the clone and all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff.
because he defeats Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and he's
Because
like,
Kraven's Last Hunt is
Yeah,
revered as
but
one of the
we are
best.
talking about the one where he clones himself and that becomes
this
the
is
new
no.
one.
before he
The-
clones himself.
Okay,
the
so-
original Kraven
Okay.
killed himself in a storyline called Kraven's Last Hunt, where he killed Spider-Man.
Okay.
And Spider-Man just got up.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Which
killed
is
him.
okay? Which is the one where he dresses up as Spider-Man?
That
then
was the
fights
Hunt.
his-
That was the recent one.
okay. Sorry, what's it called?
The Hunt.
Not the last hunt. There's a separate word in there.
And the worst part,
Also, there's
it was his.
vampires.
I want you to remember that was during Nick Spencer's run where he kept just doing callbacks to all the
Yeah,
90s
yeah,
things.
yeah.
That was.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was great.
I thought I was okay. You know what? Thanks for making
So
the naming.
my
work.
bets is Last Hunt will be on here. Big Time will be on here because they always mention Big Time. But the funniest thing about Big Time, I've never read Big Time. You can't
I've done
find
it
Big
once,
Time.
I think.
I can't get it in a book.
Yeah,
It doesn't exist. I wanted to read it.
digitally.
Well, yeah, I guess we could do that.
Probably be like $5. There's probably a big Spider-Man sale going on Comixology
I
right
would-
now.
I would-
Honestly, there probably is.
Not a sponsor.
No, but there probably is. All right, go ahead.
And I'm going to say Clone Saga's on here just because people have a weird
Yeah.
fixation with Clone Saga.
plus vampires.
All right, so the first one on this list, number 15, they don't appear to be in any sort of order.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it was updated.
Other than
Hold on.
numerically?
No, they're not doing it by numbers.
Oh,
This was
hours
up.
ago.
So the original story,
20 minutes.
he updated it 2 days ago. This guy.
oh well.
Updated his list.
Well, I mean, the movie is coming out. They're probably trying to capitalize on that. Much like any podcast that would do a Spider-Man episode.
They were probably going through and they were like, we should add the words "No Way Home" as many times as possible.
It's right here. Updated on December 14th, 2021. Spider-Man No Way Home has brought the web slinger back to the theaters, and it could end up being the best Marvel Sony movie thanks to a strong mix of villains and stories from the past. It could also raise interest in the best Spider-Man stories. The new movie include no.
No, we just get to the stories.
Yep.
We don't,
Let's
need,
I'm
tell
just
us
reading-
the stories.
we don't need to know.
Yeah, well, this guy's spoiling potential things right there. That's why I stopped.
Oh,
reading.
is
What,
he?
in the movie?
In the updated thing at the top, what he updated this with 2 days ago.
He's from the movie?
No, he doesn't do the
Oh.
movie. In this blurb, I'm stating
Oh.
he's got potential spoilers in his blurb
Oh
as to
my
why
God.
he updated it.
Oh, well, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, good
This guy's
thing.
an idiot.
Good thing I stopped
Hey,
reading.
I was right.
It's a good thing I stopped reading, right?
Yeah, he Ben's reading out loud.
And then this happened, and then
And you remember when Galactus showed up in that one part of the movie?
Then Green Goblin showed up and performed seppuku. What?
Oh, that would be
the
really
hell?
crazy.
all right. So without
That would
any,
be
with
crazy.
not 15 stories with no numbers on them, because I guess he removed the numbers, and then put spoilers in his blurb.
Sure, yeah, makes sense.
Back in Black.
All right,
2007.
all right.
The entire idea of the comic is how would Peter Parker react if he was pushed to the extreme.
All right, I'm gonna. Which
goes
one was
snowboarding.
this?
It was the return of the black suited
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
he was kind of like
Okay.
really pissed off, so he's like, you know what I'm going to do? Start dressing in black again.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
It
it's
took place
essentially what it
after
was.
Civil War when Aunt May was shot, and it ended with a moment where Spider-Man went over the line, almost killing Kingpin.
Okay.
But it wasn't the actual symbiote. He was just
Hold
like
up.
he put back on a black costume.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because that was the
Because they were doing
sign
stuff with Venom at the
Okay.
time
that
now.
he was evil again.
Okay.
Yeah, that one was weird. I don't know if I'd put that as one of the best.
That sounds like a '90s thing.
It wasn't. It was like
It's 2007.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna say
really?
it was like
Jeez.
mid 2000s. Yeah.
the Hobgoblin saga.
Okay.
For years, Spider-Man fought a familiar group of villains, and readers knew nothing about these bad guys. However, in much the same way that Green Goblin terrorized Spider-Man for a long time, without readers knowing it was Norman Osborn, the Hobgoblin saga presented a similar story of the mysterious villain. Hobgoblin was one of Spider-Man's most powerful villains, even when he disappeared and was seemingly defeated. Neither readers nor Spider-Man learned who he was. There was even a time years later when Ned Leeds was identified as the Hobgoblin,
Yes.
and even that was a swerve. The saga played out in Amazing Spider-Man 238 to 251 and remains iconic because it created one of the villains. That's who is that? Who is the guy? Because now he sells Hobgoblin. The villain who was Hobgoblin back then now sells it. Like you can buy the suit and everything and go be the new Hobgoblin.
I don't know.
He's an old man. He looks like Deathstroke. He's got like a patch over his
The
eye.
one that's like obsessed with Gwen Stacy?
I think he might be.
Who isn't? Have you seen Wednesday?
Kingsley. Thank you, chat. Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley?
I think it is that
plays
actor.
Trevor Slattery in the MCU.
Maybe with the Hobgoblin saga. The Hobgoblin saga felt like they were trying to rekindle the Green Goblin love.
That's literally what they were doing. It even has Goblin in the name.
Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
Also, they're vampires.
He uses pumpkin bombs. He flies on a glider. This is 100% what they were doing. You're like, it felt like they were trying to. No, they weren't trying. It doesn't feel like they were trying. They were trying. That's 100% what they were doing with that.
The next one is If This Is My Destiny, and that's the scene of him lifting it up with the water running over him.
I was like, it's usually one of the moments everybody points to for Spider-Man.
In this story, Spider-Man is battling a mysterious villain known as the Master Planner when Aunt May fell ill to a life-threatening illness. He learned that the Master Planner was actually Doc Ock, and he might have a way to save Aunt May. And when he almost had a way to save Aunt May, it changed everything. This story is when Spider-Man was buried under heavy machinery and used his memories of Uncle Ben to lift it off himself.
That's what I always do.
It remains iconic because it showed Spider-Man's true will and power. This one I'll agree with. This one's probably one of the greatest stories. Superior Spider-Man.
I do think Superior Spider-Man was pretty solid.
It has a little bit of fluff in it because they didn't let it end it. Like Dan Slott has come out and said they didn't let it end it like they're supposed to.
Yeah.
They just wanted it to keep going.
But it was solid. It had a lot of character growth for both Otto and then eventually Peter.
Yeah, it was a really good one.
Yeah.
So Superior Spider-Man, I won't even go into this. Basically, Amazing Spider-Man 700, Dan Slott killed Spider-Man.
No.
And Doc Ock took over his body and then became Spider-Man temporarily. I think it lasted like 40 issues. It lasted a while.
It was a while. It was like 6 graphic novels. I know that.
Right, because
I read it in graphic novel form.
The actual plot to it was only like 3 graphic novels worth.
Yeah.
And then they just had like, and now Agent Venom sees him, and now the Carnage
he
shows
sees the
up.
Avengers and beats them all. Like, wait,
That was
why
the one
couldn't
where-
Otto do that as himself? I'm
Right.
confused.
I liked when he isn't that the one where he like just completely destroys Wolverine and everyone's like shocked that
Yeah.
Spider-Man just beat the crap out of Wolverine.
Yeah. Well, then I think it's the 5th issue. He just flat out shoots a guy. It's before he's still like in the classic Spider-Man suit, costume, and he fights. I want to say it's like it's not Sinister Six. It's the group with like the Shocker and stuff. What are they called?
I know who you're
They
talking
go on to
the
be
Superior
called, like,
Foes.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're going to become called the Superior Foes. But he beats one of them, and there's like a cop there, and the guy's like, "Well, I'm gonna get out of jail, and I'm gonna kill more people," and he's like, "You're right." Boom, and just shoots him in front of like a group of people. Not even like
Isn't that why everyone starts hunting Spider-Man? Because they don't know he's Doc
But
Ock.
so they assume it's like he's like evil, you know, it's like another clone or something like that. But it's like he's not even like a dark alley. He's like in Times Square.
Love it.
You're gonna love the next one on
Okay,
this
hit
list,
me.
and this has definitely been updated to be more recent.
Okay, hit me.
Last Remains, the Nick Spencer storyline where all the villains came back from the dead.
Did not like that storyline.
As in the one that like just happened?
Yeah, where everyone got possessed by a demon, so they couldn't help him.
It was a demon centipede. It was a demon.
I actually don't think what Nick Spencer did with that was terrible. I think the reveal was terrible. Remember those 2 kids that Norman Osborn thought were his kids from all the way back with Gwen Stacy? And no, well, we've actually been cloning them, and they're the
So
centipede.
we also haven't
monster.
mentioned this entire run?
I think the story itself would have been fine if he condensed it.
Yeah.
I think it was I don't know if it's an editorial thing or if it's a writer thing these days, but a lot of people, I assume it's probably editorial, where they're like I have a tight 6-issue run. They're like, listen, we need 50 issues.
yeah.
I don't know.
The only thing that I didn't like about Nick Spencer's run and how it all resolved.
starts off really good.
It starts out really good. I liked the introduction to the Sin Eater. I even like Kindred. for a good chunk of that.
Sure, but it kept going when
Right.
it should have ended. Yeah.
Kendra just kept showing
Yeah.
up and be like, haha, you haven't figured out who I am. I might be Harry. I might be Norman. What if I'm Gwen? And they're like,
I'm
it's just
actually
like, what do you-
Uncle Ben
He
this
did that
whole
in one
time.
issue.
What?
That was one issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the worst.
that was even multiple issues.
And like even at the ending, when they finally the red herrings are being thrown out for the last remaining storyline, it's still like Harry's like, well, there's a dead me and there's a clone me and these are my
Yeah.
kids. Dad, I was messing with
Also,
you.
there's an
as
AI
a,
me.
It's a Harry
Yeah.
AI,
There's a big me on that computer screen.
and it's not the same me. I'm arguing with me.
Yeah.
And what made it even
Should've
better
ended
was,
sooner.
for the most
Also,
part,
there's vampires.
for the most part, the support cast was figuring it out.
Yeah,
Spider-Man
yeah.
was all fighting.
That is
things.
true, yeah. And that because that was in the point books, the
Yeah,
point whatever.
It was like Mary
Yeah, yeah.
Jane is over there
Yeah.
figuring this out, and Spider-Man's just like, everyone stop hitting me.
Please.
That's literally all they did with him. Is he never got a chance to breathe? He's like, okay,
stop
we're
hitting
back. Oh no, there's another Sinister Six. Oh god, also it's another Sinister Six. What the hell?
And I'm gonna sit here and catch my breath.
I just want to think about what's happening for one moment.
I got a lot of
Also,
things
there's
going on.
vampires.
I got a lot of,
Moreland showed up, and there was vampires.
I got a lot of plates spinning right now. I'm not having a good time. Yeah, that's true. There was a lot going on in that ending.
I liked it, I did, but I do feel like he could
I
have
think the
condensed it
overall
way down.
story itself was good. It was
Yeah.
just it was too drawn out. But that's a lot of stories.
The
to do.
problem I had with I think the story should have initially ended around the issue 50 issues where because they were doing the ending, it felt like.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and Kindred got away in a Thanos copter. Like that's what it felt like. And we'll come back to this in 20
cosmic cube again.
and we'll come back in 20 issues. Let's do a weird thing with
I
social
think
media.
more people should have Thanos copters.
Thing with social media.
That's what he did. Because then they
That's-
threw that in that.
yeah.
Here's his new suit.
Yeah, that was awful.
That
Yeah.
was awful. The
That
new
was
suit thing.
awful.
Oh my god.
J. Jonah Jameson is going to pay him.
Whenever they do the social media thing in any comics, to me that feels like, hey, fellow children.
Yes.
we also know what TikTok is.
The biggest example is the Booster Gold one.
Yes.
That's the
yeah,
worst
yeah,
social
yeah.
media.
Anyway, keep going.
Anyway,
All right.
yes. Also
Next up, he's got on
vampires.
the list Amazing Fantasy 15, the introduction of Spider-Man.
No, I didn't like it. That was a terrible story. Doesn't really establish the character very well.
Plus there are no vampires.
Except it literally establishes the character.
I mean, if you're putting in the greatest stories ever, and,
That
that's
makes
been
sense, yeah.
reprinted multiple
oh
times,
yeah,
that's
I think
easy to
I
get
have
hands
a
on.
reprint copy somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I got
The
it for
night
like
Gwen
$1.
Stacy died. This was great, not because I think the story itself sucks. In all
This
honesty,
is great because screw her.
no. In all honesty, I think the story
Go
sucks.
MJ.
I think the story does suck.
Okay,
The
tell me
time
what-
period it was written in.
Okay.
It's just not that good of a story, but it sets such a precedent
Well,
that
it's-
they can
it's-
be serious and go that way.
It's one of those things where if you look back on it now,
Yeah.
because it's such a different style. Like even if you go back and read comics from like the early 90s, there's such a different style to how comics are actually written now.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, why did everybody have to say what they were doing?
Yeah.
This is
Oh,
a
it's
very
like-
big thing back in old comics.
No,
where they're
you know
like,
what's better?
Peter, I'm about to drop her. Like, you didn't need to tell me. I could see that. I don't.
On
know why.
Absolutely Marvel and DC, the channel where we do reviews of TV shows and movies,
Nice plug.
we did a rerun of a lot of the classic Spider-Man cartoons to just see what.
Oh, yeah,
how
they
hold
do
up.
that. They used to do that
In
too,
like the
yeah.
70s, when it'd literally be like, "How will I ever get out of this? Doc Ock has chained down both of my
Yeah,
arms,
yeah,
and my
yeah.
strength has been sapped from me."
That's what they used to do in comics all the time. So it's like one of those things where like the story itself is fine. It's just the style
Yeah,
of writing isn't very good anymore.
Ah, Peter, I'm Dr. Octopus, and I've got a metallic arm that will reach over there and get you.
Oh, okay. Thanks for explaining that to me.
Next up, we got Spider-Man No More, the one that you were thinking of with the suit in the trash can that he just abandoned there.
Yeah,
He does
it's
that
just
all
like,
the
You know
time,
what?
though.
No one's gonna do a DNA test on any of the hair that's clearly in there, the blood, or that-
Realistically,
literally
nobody ever
anything.
does that in the comics where they're like, "Hey, a suit. Should probably just get this test so we can figure out who this dude is." And then it turns out it's just like a homeless guy's pajamas. You were wrong the whole time.
Yeah, no, so this story is notorious because it's the first time that, I like how I was even listed here, the first time
I was gonna
a
say, this has
Spider-Man quit
happened.
as a
Yeah,
hero.
it happens a lot.
Because J. Jonah Jameson wouldn't lay off him, and
Yeah.
Kingpin also became introduced there.
Yep.
Spider Island on this list, thank you, is a major Spider-Man event that took place in 2011. It's the event series. Everyone in Manhattan gains the same powers as Spider-Man. However, while some heroes rise, not
because
all of
if
them use it for good.
everyone is Spider-Man, no one is Spider-Man. It's a callback to The Incredibles.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Did you not get that?
I didn't get that. I've seen the movie forever ago.
When everyone's super.
Oh,
No
yes.
one is super.
Still one of my favorite storylines. But it is in the normal Marvel problem where there's just 80 tie-ins.
Oh yeah.
I'm dealing with that right now in Batman. Let me give you my segue before I go into it.
Okay.
Where I'm reading all the Fear State tie-ins to see what is important to the story.
None of them really.
You didn't even mention any of it.
Yeah. Well, it's like when everybody was tied into the Null saga, and it's just that meant they fought a dragon.
Wasn't that Ghost Rider was the best one?
Yeah.
He's like, we're going to use this to finish my story. Die, dragon. All right, so anyway, back to Mephisto.
It made that one even worse. We had the introduction to Reptile in the Amazing Spider-Man
Yeah.
Miles Morales null tie-in. And
Yep.
it was like that.
My
sense.
favorite tie-in was the Miles Morales one because he fought an actual dragon.
Yeah.
Which didn't make any sense. All of the other ones were made out of the symbiote goo,
Yeah.
and when
His
you
was
killed
like
them,
a-
they just disappeared. But when he killed his, it was an actual
And didn't
dragon.
he, like, tame it?
No one talks
Or, like,
to the
he,
Miles
like-
Morales team, I've realized, because in Absolute Carnage, he gains a symbiote that he can control,
Yeah.
which inexplicably disappears when he
Yeah.
shows up later in the series.
I thought that was funny. I think I even said that when I wrote the script on it. Because I said something, and then the symbiote dies. But beneath it, for some reason, is an actual dragon.
Yeah, you did. I remember reading that too.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
I remember the dragon.
So next up, we've got Venom. Which Venom? Like
I was gonna say that's
The original Venom.
yeah, it's the original.
I
the
would
original
assume,
storyline and how it
that
started.
sets up that
Yeah.
character that's still going.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Venom's great. I love Venom.
Venom.
Next up, we got Spider-Verse.
Hey, that's what I
Spider-Verse-
said.
My problem with Spider-Verse, and it's the same thing that, like, you whirled on me like I was supposed to say some shit. You're like, I'll slap you.
We don't badmouth Spider-Verse here.
It's the same thing all modern, mostly Marvel events have, is that the main book, like if you didn't read the tie-ins, you don't know a lot of what's going on because they're like, Scarlet Spiders, you go to this, we'll go to this, yada, yada, yada. And then eventually they're like, hey, everybody good? All right, come back. We're going to have a final fight. But if you didn't read any of the tie-ins, you have no idea what's going on.
Right.
A lot of the main book just sets up the tie-ins.
I will give them credit though, because I remember this when I was making this. At least they gave you a checklist of the
They did. They
like
did.
a
Yeah,
reading
I'll give
order
that.
for
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and it was like, thank you so much.
But that
'Cause they
was-
don't do that anymore.
Not usually, yeah. But that was my time.
Yeah, I agree. I read all Spider-Verse as it was coming out.
Yeah.
But what Spider-Verse was really cool about was it kind of before Spider-Verse, a lot of people don't realize this, that Spider-Verse story introduced the idea of the multiple Spider-Men not being clones, but like we can just have
multiple alternate
Because
realities.
before that, only two we had was Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2099. This brought in Ghost Spider. We got to actually see Spider-Ham teaming up with everyone. We got Assassin Spider. We got Cosmic. We got like all the Spider people
Well,
came into
Noir
one.
Spider-Man was before that though,
That was a what if. That was
because
an
they did
Elseworlds.
like basically a what if universe,
Yeah.
like the Noir.
But this
universe,
connected
yeah.
everything together and introduced a lot of characters that
Yeah,
have
it
now
did,
gone
yeah.
on to be in the movies.
Yep.
So
Played by John Mulaney.
I was thinking the exact same character.
next we have the death of Spider-Man from the Ultimate Universe. Yep. I mean, I don't think anyone can argue that that story is
That
not
was a good
awesome.
story. Yeah, it was solid. And then introduced us to Miles.
Yep. The kid who collects Spider-Man. What? The one lesser-known Spider-Man story that every fan should read is The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. It took place in Amazing Spider-Man 248, and it shows Spider-Man meeting a child who proclaims that he is Spider-Man's greatest fan.
Oh, is this the?
Spider-Man meets young Tim, who's collected every newspaper article and other mementos of his career. When Tim asks who he really is, he unmasks and tells Tim his origin story. He then leaves with the readers seeing the truth. Tim is dying, and his last dream is to meet his hero.
I think I.
No, that's not that one.
There's
That's
another one.
The
I'm thinking of a
cancer
different
one you're thinking of.
Oh,
where
yeah,
he
that's
has a
Spider-Man's
sidekick.
Oh
sidekick.
yeah, the
Yeah, they're playing and he's got a
spider bite.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
is what
yeah,
they
yeah,
call
yeah.
him. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, first of all, though, granted, I understand the point of that. It is a very sentimental story. I get it. But that also means Peter was like, this kid's dying anyway.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Turns out it becomes this huge Make-A-Wish Foundation. Unmasked Spider-Man. It's like, oh my god.
They start
Maybe
taking
you gotta
pictures. There's
die,
like
kid.
people like behind it. He's done it.
Get him. We tricked him with this kid who's supposedly dying.
Spider-Man shows up. He beat the cancer. Well, we can't have that.
The death of Jean de Wolf,
Sorry.
or Jean de Wolf.
Jean de Wolf.
She was a police detective and one of the few officers who trusted him like Spider-Man. The two often worked together, and then one day someone killed her. This was Sin Eater. Oh, his original appearance.
Oh, okay.
I
I
actually never read
remembered
one.
that name.
I bet they banged.
And the one at the bottom, so I'm going to assume it's number 1, Craven's Last Hunt. We got to cover that on this channel finally. Andy,
I thought
get
we
on
did
it. I think we wrote it.
I was going to say, I swear I wrote
You already
that.
wrote it, but write it again. But this time with vampires.
Just put vampires in.
Every ending of any script now, and also there's vampires.
It crossed over all of the Spider-Man titles at the time and was written by J.M. DeMatteis and Mike Zeck, credited as the creative team on the story. It's Craven's last chance to achieve his one remaining goal, killing Spider-Man. He succeeds, but with a twist. He didn't use a bullet, but instead shoots him and buries him alive before taking on Spider-Man's role himself. By the end, Craven has nothing left to prove, which marked the end of the story.
And then he kills himself.
That's that. That's all of the ones on the list.
What an awkward ending.
Thank you. I didn't know where to go with this. And that's today's episode of Comics Experiment. Let us know in the comments down below what your favorite story is in the world of Spider-Man, or which one you've hated the most. Dan, who are our sponsors today?
Mint Mobile, where you can go to mintmobile.com/experiment and get 3 months free when you buy a 3-month plan. Also, our Patreons at patreon.com/comicstory and our Twitch subscribers at twitch.tv/comicstory. You can also buy G Fuel with code COMICS at checkout to save 10 to 30% on your order. Also, our 2 YouTube channels, Dungeons and Ale and Absolutely Marvel and DC. You're welcome.
And on that note, Benny.exe has stopped working.